I never thought I'd have to hide my razor from a grown man, but here we are. And not just the razor, my shampoo, conditioner, face wash, deodorant, everything. I was carrying my toiletries back and forth from my bedroom to the bathroom like I was at a campsite, and the worst part, the guy wasn't even paying rent. Let me back up. I'm 21, female, and I live in a two-bedroom flat with my roommate who's 22. We moved in together just over a year ago. The lease is in both our names, we split rent and bills 50-50, and for the most part, things were fine. We're not best friends or anything, but we're friendly. We respect each other's space, we're both clean, we don't fight over the thermostat. It was a good setup. Then about 6 months ago, she started dating this guy. He's 24. At first, he was around maybe once or twice a week, which I thought was normal. But within a few weeks, he was here constantly. I'm talking sleeps over 5 or 6 nights a week. Sometimes full weeks in a row. He's not on the lease, he doesn't pay rent, he doesn't bring groceries, he doesn't help with any bills. Nothing. I never said much because I get it, it's her boyfriend and I didn't want to start drama. But what really got under my skin was the shower thing. He showers all the time, twice a day minimum, sometimes more, and every single time he uses my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I didn't say anything the first few times because I thought maybe she let him borrow something once. But it kept happening. I moved all my personal care items into my room and started carrying them back and forth to the bathroom. It was annoying, but I figured that was the easiest way to handle it. A few weeks ago, I finally brought it up to my roommate. I tried to be casual about it. I said, "Hey, I noticed your boyfriend has been using my shampoo and stuff. Could you ask him to use his own?" She just shrugged and said, "Oh, he probably didn't realize." That was it. She didn't do anything. He kept using my things. That was when I decided to say something more direct. Last week, I sat her down and told her flat out, I wasn't comfortable with him showering here all the time, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute anything, and uses my personal items without asking. I said I'd feel different if he at least bought his own shampoo and kept it in the bathroom or chipped in for utilities somehow. But as it was, I felt like I was subsidizing someone else's hygiene routine. She got super defensive, like immediately. She accused me of being controlling and said I was trying to ruin her relationship. She told me I was being unreasonable and that he had nowhere else to shower because his family had cut him off. She said it with this attitude like I was supposed to feel sorry for him, and I did feel a little bad, honestly. But also I thought, why did his family cut him off? What's his deal? I started paying more attention after that. I noticed he always carried a backpack. He never left it unattended. When he went into the bathroom, he took it with him. One day I was home earlier than usual and I heard the shower running. Then I heard a weird clicking sound. I crept closer to the bathroom door. I know it's creepy, but something felt off, and through the crack I saw him sitting on the edge of the tub with a small digital scale. My heart dropped into my stomach. I didn't confront him. I went to my room and started Googling. I called a friend who used to work in addiction recovery and described the situation. She told me about the signs, the constant showering, the backpack, the scale. She said people who use or deal certain substances often shower multiple times a day to stay clean or to mask smells. She also said sharing razors is a health hazard, but that was the least of my worries at that point. A few nights later, I came home from a late shift. The apartment was empty. I decided to check under the bathroom sink, something I'd never done before. And there it was, a small baggie with a white residue, not mine. I knew what it was. I felt sick. That's when I decided I needed to get out. I told my roommate the next morning that I wanted her boyfriend to stop showering here entirely, and that if he kept using my stuff or if I found anything else suspicious, I would talk to the landlord. She flipped out. She started screaming at me, calling me a paranoid bitch, saying I was trying to destroy her life. I didn't scream back, I just stood there and let her yell. When she was done, I went to my room and locked the door. I didn't think it could get worse. But that night, I came home to find my bedroom door forced open. The lock was broken, my stuff was everywhere, and my razor was sitting on the bathroom counter wet with a note that said, "You forgot this." I stood there staring at the note. "You forgot this." My razor wet sitting on the counter like a threat. The bedroom door was splintered, the lock hanging by one screw. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just took my razor, went back to my room and shut what was left of the door. Then I called the landlord. He came over the next morning. I showed him the door, I showed him the bathroom. I told him everything, the constant showers, the backpack, the scale I saw through the crack, the baggie with white residue under the sink. He asked if I had any proof. I said I had a photo of the baggie on my phone. He took a deep breath and said he'd handle it. He told me I was allowed to break the lease without penalty if I wanted. I wanted. But first, I gave my roommate one final warning. I texted her, "Your boyfriend needs to stop coming over, period, or I'm calling the cops." She responded with a wall of text calling me a liar, a psycho, a jealous bitch. She said I was making everything up because I was lonely. I didn't reply. 3 days later, I came home from work and the apartment was trashed. Not just my room, the whole place. Furniture overturned, dishes smashed, my clothes dumped on the floor. On the kitchen counter, there was another note written in Sharpie on a pizza box. "Mind your own business." I didn't hesitate this time. I called 911. The police came, they took pictures. They interviewed me. I gave them the photo of the baggie, the timeline of his visits, the notes. They asked if I knew where my roommate was. I didn't. They said they'd look into it. I slept at a friend's house that night. The next week was a blur. The landlord gave me permission to move out immediately. I packed what I could salvage. My roommate showed up once while I was packing, flanked by her boyfriend. She looked at me with pure hatred. "You ruined my life," she said. I just pointed at the pile of my broken stuff and said, "No, you did that yourself." The boyfriend was twitchy, eyes darting around. He didn't say a word. They left. I moved into a studio apartment 2 weeks later. The day I signed the new lease, I got a text from my old roommate. It said, "He got arrested, thanks for nothing." I didn't respond. I later found out through a mutual friend that he'd been caught selling Xanax and Adderall to an undercover cop. My roommate was evicted. The apartment is being gutted. And my razor, I threw it away. Some things you can't ever get clean. I don't feel bad, not one bit. That story broke me a little. But life goes on, right? You think you've seen it all, and then something else comes along that makes you question basic human decency. Like what happened with my coworker. This one still makes my blood boil just thinking about it. I need to tell you about Casey. I have a chronic pain condition. I'm physically and legally disabled. I have a handicap placard on my rear view mirror. I have canes I use on bad days, and I had all the proper paperwork filed with my job for accommodations. I work 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time. The part-time job is in an office as an assistant coordinator to a manager named Amy. I like the work. It keeps me busy, helps with my anxiety, and pads my savings. I've been open with everyone about not wanting a promotion because I already have a full-time job. Casey is another assistant coordinator to Amy. She wants the promotion badly. She's been gunning for it for over a year. And when I was transferred to that location to help with an expansion, she didn't take it well. She saw me as competition, even though I told her multiple times I wasn't interested. She didn't believe me. It started with little things, sarcastic comments about my bad days. Eyes rolling when I used my cane. She'd say things like, "Oh, you're not using your cane today. Guess you faked it yesterday." I ignored it. I told myself she was just stressed about the promotion. Amy was a good boss and she shut down the worst of it, telling Casey to focus on her own work. But Casey didn't stop. She escalated. One Monday in January, I was having a really bad pain day. I was at a 7 on my scale, the kind where you feel like you've been kicked in the spine. I used my cane. I parked in a handicapped spot. I took it slow. I got through the day. When I got home, I just collapsed on my couch. The next day I felt better, not great, but a solid 4. I went to work without my cane. I was moving normally, smiling, chatting with coworkers. A good day. 2 days later, my boss Amy pulled me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. She said, "I need to tell you something and I want you to know I'm on your side." She showed me her phone. There was a video. It was me walking into my apartment building from 2 days earlier. No cane, normal stride. I was carrying groceries. The video was recorded from a car parked across the street. My blood went cold. Amy said, "Casey sent this to HR. She claims you're faking your disability. She says she's been documenting evidence for weeks." I didn't know what to say. I just stared at the video. It was me. It was obviously me, but it was a good day. I have good days. That doesn't mean I'm not disabled. Amy told me she was required to escalate the complaint to HR, but she believed me. She promised to support me. I thanked her, walked out of her office, and went straight to the bathroom. I didn't cry. I was too angry. This woman had followed me home. She had parked outside my apartment and recorded me without my consent. She had taken video footage to prove I wasn't sick enough for her liking. I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer listened to me, took down all the details, gave me a case number. He said they'd look into it. I didn't hear back for days. Meanwhile, HR opened an investigation. They interviewed me. They asked about my condition, my paperwork, my good days and bad days. I provided my doctor's note, my handicap placard registration, everything. Casey was interviewed too. I don't know what she said, but the next week I got an email saying that the investigation was ongoing and that I should avoid contact with Casey. Avoid contact? We work in the same small office. We sit 15 feet apart. How was I supposed to avoid contact? The tension was unbearable. Casey would glare at me from her desk. She'd whisper with other coworkers. A few people stopped talking to me. I started eating lunch in my car. Amy did her best, but she was stuck in the middle. 2 weeks after the video incident, I was leaving the office when I noticed a car that looked familiar. Same make, same color as the one in the video. It's parked down the street. I took a photo of the license plate. I called the non-emergency line and reported it. The dispatcher told me they'd send a patrol. I waited 40 minutes. No one came. I drove home shaking. The next morning, I had a voicemail from the police. It was the officer I'd first talked to. He said they'd reviewed my complaint and the video evidence I'd provided. He said, "We've spoken with Ms. Casey. She admitted to recording you. She said she was just trying to prove the truth. She's been warned about harassment. We'll be filing a report for stalking." He said it like it was nothing, like a parking ticket. I asked if there were charges. He said it was a misdemeanor at best, and since there was no immediate threat, they were just issuing a warning. A warning. Casey got a warning. I got a stalker. I went to HR the same day. I told them about the warning, about the car, about everything. I said I didn't feel safe. I asked for a transfer to a different location or for Casey to be moved. They said they'd take it under advisement. 2 days later, I got a notice that I was being reassigned to a different branch, pending the outcome of the investigation. Translated, I was being moved so Casey could stay. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just packed my desk. The new location is farther from my apartment. It adds 40 minutes to my commute. I'm in a tiny cubicle with no natural light. Casey still works at the old location. I heard she got a formal warning from HR. No promotion, not yet, but the investigation is still ongoing. 3 months later, it's still ongoing. I still get nervous when I leave my apartment. I check the street before I walk out. I lock my car doors the second I get in. My boyfriend says I'm paranoid. But the last time I was this trusting, someone stole my razor and left a note on my counter. Some people just don't know when to stop. And all I can do is keep moving, keep proving I exist, keep carrying my cane on the days I need it, and the days I don't, I still wonder who's watching. That was the update I posted a few months ago. But things didn't stay quiet. They got worse, way worse. I thought moving to the new branch would put distance between me and Casey. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Wrong. About 3 weeks after I settled into that tiny cubicle with no natural light, I got an email from HR. They said the investigation was closed. They found insufficient evidence of harassment because Casey claimed she was just concerned about workplace integrity. Translation, she lied and they believed her. They gave her a final written warning for the video, but no transfer, no suspension. She stayed at the original location, I stayed at the new one, and Amy, she called me apologizing. She said she fought for me, but HR had made their decision and there was nothing she could do. I was furious. But I still had my job, I still needed the money, so I kept my head down. Then the car showed up again. It was a Thursday evening around 7. I was walking from the grocery store to my car. The parking lot was half empty. I saw a sedan that looked just like the one that had been parked outside my apartment, same color, same dent on the rear bumper. My stomach dropped, I froze. I stood there holding my grocery bags, staring at the car. No one was inside, but I knew. I just knew Casey had found me again. I didn't call the police. What was the point? They'd already told me it was a misdemeanor at best. So I called Amy, she didn't pick up. I left a voicemail, my voice shaking. She's here, Amy. She followed me to the new location. I saw her car. Please call me back. I drove home with my eyes glued to the rearview mirror. I took 3 different routes, doubled back twice. No one followed me, but I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "Hope you like your new desk. I know where it is." I didn't respond. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Amy and to HR. I called the police again. This time I got a different officer. He listened, took down the report, and said they'd send someone to talk to Casey. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard back. Meanwhile, the whispers started at my new branch. Coworkers would look at me funny. One woman asked, "Are you the one with the disability claim?" Another person said, "I heard you're faking it for the parking spot." Someone left a note on my desk. It said, "We don't want drama here. Transfer out." I took the note to my new manager. She looked uncomfortable. She said she'd look into it, but nothing happened. The note was gone the next day. I felt trapped. I started having panic attacks in the bathroom. I'd lock the stall and just breathe, telling myself to get through the day. But every time I walked to my car, I expected to see that sedan again. About a week ago, I reached my breaking point. I was driving home from the new branch when I saw a police car in my rearview. Cop lights, blue and red. I pulled over. My heart was pounding. The officer walked up to my window and asked for my license and registration. I handed them over. He looked at my handicap placard. Then he looked at me. "You know, this placard is for people who actually can't walk, right?" he said. I stared at him. "I have chronic pain. I have a condition. It's legal." He narrowed his eyes. "We've got a report about your car. Someone says you're using the placard fraudulently." My stomach dropped. I knew who had called it in Casey. She'd even gotten the cops to harass me on the road. I explained I had all the paperwork. He eventually let me go with a warning, but he said, "I'll be watching you." I drove home crying. The next day, I went to HR and requested a formal leave of absence. I told them I was being stalked, that I felt unsafe, that I needed time to deal with my health. They approved it. 2 weeks of unpaid leave. I'm sitting at home now writing this update. My boyfriend wants me to quit. My mother says I should lawyer up, but I don't have the money for a lawyer and I don't know if I can find another job that accommodates my condition. I tried to report Casey for the stalking again. I filed a restraining order request at the courthouse. The judge denied it. He said there wasn't enough evidence of a credible threat. I showed him the text, the video, the car sightings. He said it was hearsay because I couldn't prove she sent the text. The number was a burner. The police never traced it. So here I am on leave, afraid to leave my apartment, afraid to check my email, afraid of what happens when I go back to work. If I go back, I don't know what the next update will be. I hope it's a good one. But right now I'm just trying to get through the day, one breath at a time. I never thought I'd be that person, the one who has to hide their shampoo in their bedroom. But here we are. I'm 21, female, living in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate who's Tudu. We've been roommates for a little over a year, and for the most part things were fine. We split rent and bills evenly. We were friendly but not super close, and we respected each other's space. It was a good setup. Then about 6 months ago, she started dating this guy. He was 24, seemed nice enough at first. He came over once or twice a week. I didn't think much of it, but then it became 3 times a week, then 4. Then he was sleeping over 5 to 6 nights a week, sometimes full weeks in a row. He was not on the lease. He didn't pay rent. He didn't bring groceries. He didn't help with anything, nothing. I never said much because I get it, she's in a relationship and I didn't want to start drama. But what started bothering me was the shower thing. This guy showers all the time, like twice a day minimum, sometimes more, and every single time he used my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, even my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I didn't say anything the first few times because I thought maybe she let him borrow something once, but it just kept happening. I moved all my toiletries into my room. I started carrying them back and forth to the bathroom like I was at a campsite. It was ridiculous. I finally brought it up to my roommate a few months ago and she just said he probably didn't realize and didn't do anything about it. Last week I finally said something more direct. I told her I wasn't comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here, doesn't contribute anything, and uses my stuff. I told her I'd feel different if he at least bought his own stuff or chipped in somehow. She got super defensive. She said I was overreacting, that I was being controlling, that he was just trying to stay clean. I told her it's not about being clean, it's about the fact that he's using my personal hygiene products without asking and that he's basically living here rent-free. She said I was being unreasonable. I thought I was overreacting. Maybe I was, but then the boyfriend got involved. He came out of her room while we were talking and he said, "What's your problem? I'm not hurting anyone." "You're just jealous or something." Jealous of what? Of having a guy who uses my razor. I didn't scream, but I was close. I just said, "I'm not jealous. I just want my stuff left alone. And I want you to not treat this place like a hotel." He laughed. He actually laughed, then he said, "Fine, I won't shower here anymore, but when I smell, it's on you." I went to my room and shut the door. I was shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way he said it, like I was the unreasonable one, like he was doing me a favor by not using my stuff. I texted my roommate, "I need you to understand that this isn't about the shower. It's about him living here without contributing, and using my things, that's not okay." She didn't reply. The next day, I came home from work and found that my shampoo and conditioner were back in the bathroom. Someone had taken them out of my room. I didn't even know how they got in. My door was locked. But there they were, sitting on the edge of the tub. My razor was gone. I felt my face go hot. I went straight to her door and knocked. She opened it. The boyfriend was sitting on her bed behind her. I said, "Did you guys take my stuff out of my room?" She looked at him. He looked at the floor. She said, "I needed to shower and I couldn't find mine. I thought you were being dramatic." I said, "You broke into my room." She said, "I used a bobby pin. It's not a big deal." I said, "It is a big deal. You broke into my room, and where is my razor?" The boyfriend said, "I used it, I'll buy you a new one." I said, "You used my razor, that's disgusting, you don't share razors, that's how you get infections." He shrugged. I didn't think it was a big deal. I lost it. I said, "You need to leave, both of you, I'm going to talk to the landlord." My roommate started crying. She said I was ruining her relationship, that I was being a bad friend. I said, "You're the one who broke into my room and gave my razor to your boyfriend, I'm done." I went to my room and locked the door. I called the landlord the next morning. He said he'd talk to her. That was 3 days ago. Since then, things have been tense. My roommate hasn't spoken to me. The boyfriend hasn't been over, but I don't know if that's temporary. I've been keeping my stuff locked in my car. I know it sounds extreme, but I don't trust them anymore. But the story didn't end there. About a week after the razor incident, I found something that changed everything. I was doing laundry in the basement, and I noticed a small plastic baggie in the pocket of a pair of jeans that were in the laundry basket. It was one of those little Ziploc bags with white powder residue. My heart stopped. I know what that is, I've seen it before. I didn't say anything. I just put the baggie in my pocket and went back to my apartment. I started paying closer attention. I noticed the boyfriend came and went at weird hours. He'd leave for 10 minutes and come back, leave again. He'd get phone calls and step outside. He always seemed on edge. I decided to talk to my roommate one more time. I said, "Look, I found something in your laundry. I think you know what I'm talking about." Her face went white. She said, "That's not mine." I said, "It was in your boyfriend's jeans. I know you know." She started crying again. She said, "He said he was just helping a friend. He said it was only a little bit. I didn't know." I said, "You didn't know he was dealing drugs. He's been living here for free using my stuff and he's dealing drugs." She said, "I didn't know, I swear." I didn't believe her, but I also didn't know what to do. I went to the landlord and told him everything. The boyfriend dealing, the break-in, the harassment. The landlord said he'd handle it. 3 days later, my roommate came to me and said they were breaking up. She'd finally seen the truth. The boyfriend had been using her, using the apartment, using me. She apologized. She said she'd move out by the end of the month. I was relieved, but also exhausted. I'd spent months feeling like I was crazy, like I was overreacting. And it turns out I was right all along. He was using us. She was blind. And I was the one who had to carry my shampoo to the bathroom every day like a lunatic. So, final update, my roommate moved out last week. The landlord let her break the lease early. I have the place to myself now. I bought new locks for my door. I bought new shampoo and conditioner. And I threw away the old razor. I hope I never see that guy again. Sometimes you have to trust your gut, even when everyone tells you you're overreacting. Even when they break into your room, even when they use your razor, just trust yourself. I'm still living in the same apartment. It's quiet now. No more showers at 2 a.m., no more missing deodorant, no more feeling like a stranger in my own home. I'm finally at peace, but I still carry my shampoo to the bathroom. Old habits, I guess. It's funny how you think you've seen the worst of people, and then something new comes along. I found out the hard way that some people are willing to go to incredible lengths to prove you don't deserve what you have. I've been dealing with chronic pain for years. Not the kind that shows up on x-rays or makes you limp all the time, but the kind that's always there like a low hum in your bones. Some days I'm a 6 on the pain scale, and on the rare miracle days I'm a 4. I'm active, I work, I live my life. But I also have bad days where I need my canes, and I have a handicap placard because I'm legally disabled. I've got the paperwork to prove it. I work 2 jobs. My main one is full-time, and then I have a part-time gig as an assistant coordinator at another place. I took the part-time job because I like it and it keeps my mind off the pain. I didn't want a promotion, my full-time job was enough. But my coworker Casey wanted that promotion bad. He'd been angling for it for months. And when the company moved me to a new location closer to my home, Casey was already there. He was another assistant coordinator, same role as me. He saw me as competition for the promotion he wanted, even though I kept telling him I didn't want it. Our boss, Amy, was great. She knew about my disability. I had all the paperwork filed with HR, and she made sure I had what I needed. I used my cane on the days when the pain was worse, and on good days I didn't. I thought that was normal, but Casey started making comments. "You don't seem that disabled today." "Oh, you're walking fine now, huh?" Little jabs that I tried to ignore. Then one day I was parked in the handicap spot, and Casey came up to me in the parking lot. He had his phone out. He said, "I just think it's strange that you can park in the handicap spot, but I saw you jogging to your car last week." I said, "That's because some days are better than others. That's how chronic pain works." He smirked. Sure, I should have known something was off, but I didn't think he'd actually do something about it. A few weeks later, I was out with my sister at a grocery store. It was a good day. I was maybe a 4 on the pain scale. I didn't need my cane. I was walking normally, laughing with her, carrying a bag of oranges. And then I saw Casey. He was standing at the end of the aisle, phone pointed at me. He was filming. I felt my stomach drop. I walked up to him and said, "What are you doing?" He lowered his phone and said, "Just making a point. You claim you're disabled, but here you are walking around just fine." I said, "That's not how it works. I have bad days. I have good days. Today is a good day." He said, "I think you're faking it for the perks." I called my boss, Amy, right there in the store. I was shaking. I told her what happened. She said she'd talk to him, but Casey didn't stop. He started following me. I'd see his car parked near my apartment. He'd show up at the same coffee shop I went to. He took more videos of me walking, of me carrying groceries, of me sitting in a chair without my cane. He posted them on a private group, I guess, I don't know. But someone from HR called me and said there was a complaint against me alleging that I was abusing the handicap placard. I had to go in for a meeting. I brought my medical records, my doctor's note, my paperwork from the state. I showed them everything. They said they'd look into it, but I could tell they were skeptical. Because what do you do when a coworker shows video of you walking normally on a good day? I tried to file a police report. The first time the officer said, "It's not illegal to film someone in public." I said, "He's stalking me, he's following me." The officer shrugged. "We'll talk to him." They never did. The second time I called the non-emergency line and said I had a coworker who was harassing me and I felt unsafe. They sent an officer who asked if he'd threatened me. I said no, but he's been following me and taking videos. The officer said, "That's not a crime here, ma'am, unless he makes a direct threat, we can't do much." I'm black, I'm disabled, I live in Texas. I knew the odds were against me, but I didn't expect Casey to double down. A few days after the police told me they couldn't do anything, Casey showed up at my apartment building. I was on my way out and he was standing near the door. He had his phone out again. He said, "I just want to prove once and for all that you're not disabled." I said, "Get away from me, I'm calling the police." He said, "Go ahead, they won't do anything." I called the police again. I told them a man was outside my apartment filming me. They said they'd send a unit. 20 minutes later, no one came. I called again. They said they were busy. I ended up staying inside all day because I was afraid to go out. My boss, Amy, called me that night. She said Casey had been suspended pending an investigation. But she also said the company had received a letter from Casey's lawyer. He was claiming that I was the one harassing him, that I had made threats, that I was using my disability as a shield. I couldn't believe it. Told Amy he's been stalking me. He took videos of me without my consent. He followed me to my home. Amy said, "I believe you, but HR is going to need evidence. Do you have any video of him following you?" I didn't. I was too busy being afraid, so I started documenting everything. I saved every weird encounter. I wrote down dates and times. I took screenshots of his car parked near my apartment. I even bought a small dash cam for my car. I was ready, but Casey was ready too. The next week, I got a call from my landlord. He said my apartment had been broken into. Someone had jimmied the lock on my back door. Nothing was stolen, but some of my medical paperwork was spread out on the floor. My handicap placard was missing from my car glove box. I knew it was him. I called the police again. They came this time. I told them about the coworker. They said they'd update the report, but I saw it in their eyes. They didn't believe me or they didn't care. I was just another person calling in a complaint they couldn't prove. I moved in with my sister for a week. I couldn't stay there alone. I was terrified. I kept thinking about how he had gotten into my apartment, how he knew where I lived, how he was willing to break in just to prove a point. My sister said, "You need to get a lawyer." I did. I found one who specializes in harassment and disability cases. She said we had a strong case if we could prove he took the placard, but without the placard itself, it was going to be hard. Casey was fired 2 weeks later. The company investigated and found enough evidence from other coworkers. He had been harassing them too, making comments about their bodies, following them. I wasn't his only target, but he was still out there. I found out he had filed a restraining order against me claiming I had been following him. It was denied, but still, the audacity. I'm still living at my sister's place. I'm afraid to go back to my own apartment. I'm afraid he'll come back. I'm afraid he'll do something worse. The police told me I should consider moving, but I shouldn't have to move because of him. I shouldn't have to change my life because a coworker decided I wasn't disabled enough for him. I don't know what happens next. I'm waiting for the lawyer to get back to me. I'm trying to stay strong. But some days I just want to disappear. And then I remember I'm not the one who did something wrong. He is. I never asked for special treatment. I just wanted to park close to the door on days when my back screamed. I just wanted to have a cane on days when I couldn't stand straight. I didn't ask for a stalker, but here I am and I'm still fighting. But that's not the only story I have. Let me tell you about a different kind of nightmare, one that started with a shower. I'm 21, live in a 2-bedroom flat with my roommate Tudu. We've been living together for a little over a year. We're friendly but not super close. We split rent and bills evenly. It was fine until about 6 months ago when she started dating this guy Tufor. At first he was around once or twice a week, then it became 4 nights, then 5, then 6. Sometimes he'd stay for an entire week straight. He's not on the lease, he doesn't pay rent, he doesn't bring groceries, he doesn't contribute anything. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to start drama. I figured, she's happy whatever, but the shower thing. Oh my god, the shower thing. He showers twice a day minimum, sometimes 3 times. And every single time he uses my stuff. My shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, my razor, even my deodorant. Yes, I noticed. I moved all my toiletries into my bedroom and started carrying them back and forth like I was in a dorm. I thought that would solve it. Then he started using the spare bar of soap I kept in the shower for guests. I brought it up to my roommate casually at first like, hey, could you ask your boyfriend to maybe use his own stuff? She just shrugged and said he probably didn't realize. I let it go. A month later, I noticed my razor was dull. Then I found a used razor of mine in the trash. I knew it was mine because it had a specific pink handle. I confronted her again, more direct this time. I said I'm not comfortable with him showering here constantly, especially since he doesn't live here and doesn't pay anything. If he bought his own stuff, I'd feel different. She got defensive. She said I was being controlling, that he was just trying to keep clean, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I said, it's my stuff. I have a right to not want a stranger using my razor. She rolled her eyes and walked away. I thought that was the end of it, but then things escalated. I started noticing my deodorant was being used even after I hid it in my room. I'd come home and find the bathroom floor wet, his towel on the rack, my body wash half empty. I started feeling like I was living with a stray cat that kept sneaking in. I asked my roommate if he could at least shower at his own place. She said he doesn't have hot water at his apartment. I said, that's not my problem. She said, you're being a bitch. I said, I'm being reasonable. We didn't talk for 3 days. Then one night I came home from work early. Around 9 p.m. I heard the shower running. I sat in the living room waiting. The shower ran for 45 minutes. When he finally came out, he didn't even say hi. He just walked into her room in his towel. I saw a red rash on his arm. I didn't think much of it at the time, but later that week I found a needle in the bathroom trash. I'm not stupid. I've seen enough to know what a syringe looks like. I called my roommate. She didn't answer. I texted her, there's a needle in the bathroom. She replied, it's not mine, must be his, don't touch it. That was the moment everything changed. I started paying attention. I noticed he was always jittery. He'd go into the bathroom for 10 minutes and come out calm. He'd leave the apartment at odd hours and come back looking wired. I told my roommate I was worried. She said I was being paranoid. She said, he's just stressed. He's going through a lot. I said, he's using drugs in our bathroom. She said, you don't know that. I said, I found a needle. She said, could be for vitamins. I nearly laughed. I started locking my bedroom door. I started keeping my laptop and valuables in my car. I felt like I was living in a dangerous place. One morning I woke up and my bedroom door was unlocked. I always lock it. I knew I did. I checked my room. Nothing was missing, but my dresser drawers were slightly open. I called my roommate. She said he must have wanted to borrow my hairdryer. I said, why didn't he ask? She said, you were sleeping. I said, that's breaking and entering. She said, you're overreacting. I gave her a notice. I said either he stops staying here or I'm moving out. She cried and said I was ruining her relationship. I said, I'm ruining your relationship by not wanting a drug addict in my home. She said he's not an addict. I said, he's using needles in our bathroom. She had no response. The next week I came home to find the bathroom door open. The toilet seat was cracked. There was a hole in the wall. I called the police. They came, they looked around, they talked to my roommate. She said he had gotten angry after a fight and punched the wall. They asked if he lived there. She said no. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. They said they'd look for him. They never found him. That night my roommate told me she was moving out. She said I was toxic and controlling and that I had ruined her life. I said good. She left the next week. She paid her portion of the rent for the next month, but after that she ghosted me. I had to cover the whole rent for 2 months until I found a new roommate, but you know what? It was worth it. I found out later from a mutual friend that he had been dealing drugs out of her car. She got arrested with him for possession. She spent a night in jail and he got probation. She lost her job. She tried to reach out to me, but I blocked her. I still think about that time. How I kept telling myself I was overreacting. How I let a stranger use my razor. How I ignored the signs because I didn't want to be confrontational, but I learned my lesson. Now I set boundaries up front. I don't care if I sound controlling. If someone wants to use my shower, they can bring their own soap, and they better not touch my deodorant. That story ended better than the one with Casey. Some people just don't know when to stop, but I'm done letting people take advantage of me. I'm done being afraid. I'm done carrying my shampoo back and forth like I'm at a summer camp. I deserve to have my own space, and I will fight for it. A few weeks after my roommate moved out, I noticed a red patch on my arm. I thought it was just a rash at first, but it kept spreading. It started itching like crazy. I went to the clinic and the doctor asked if I'd been sharing razors. I told her about the deodorant, the razor, the whole situation. She said, "You could have gotten a staph infection or MRSA." I felt like an idiot. I'd been walking around with my toiletries in a basket like I was in a hostel, and I still ended up sharing a razor with a stranger. I tested negative for anything serious, but she gave me antibiotics and told me not to share any personal care items ever again. I almost laughed. That was the final lesson I needed. I've been living alone now for 3 months. My new roommate is a quiet guy who works night shifts. He uses his own shower gel and keeps his stuff in his room. I still flinch when I hear the shower run sometimes. I keep my bathroom locked when I'm not home. I know it's paranoid, but I don't care. The needle in the trash haunts me. The cracked toilet seat haunts me. The way she defended him even after the hole in the wall, that haunts me too. A mutual friend told me last week that the guy had been using heroin. That's why he showered so much. He was trying to cool down the fever from withdrawal, or maybe he was just trying to hide the smell. I don't know. I just know I let a drug addict into my home because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to start drama. I thought being polite would keep the peace, but the peace was never real. It was just me swallowing my comfort for months until I almost got a blood infection. I still get angry when I think about my roommate. She knew she had to know. He was using needles in our bathroom and she told me not to touch them. She didn't even clean it up. I had to throw away my own trash can because I couldn't stop imagining him sticking a needle in his arm while I was sleeping in the next room. She chose him over her own safety, over mine. And she still blamed me for breaking up their relationship. I don't feel bad about that at all, but that story ended. That nightmare is over. I'm in a better place now. But the other story, the one with Casey and the camera, that one is still ongoing, and it's getting worse. After the night he showed up at my sister's house with the recording, I filed another police report. The same officer who had shrugged me off earlier finally came to take a statement. I showed him the video Casey had sent to my boss. I showed him the email from HR. I showed him the text messages where Casey threatened to expose me. The officer looked at it all and said, "This is harassment, but it's not a physical threat. We can't arrest him for being creepy." I asked, "What about the stalking?" He said, "He has to follow you with intent to harm. He's just taking videos. It's a gray area." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if being followed to your sister's house counts as gray. I wanted to ask him if having your face recorded while you're trying to park counts as gray. But I didn't. I just took the paper with the case number and left. My boss Amy called me the next day. She said Casey had been put on administrative leave while they investigated. She said she believed me. She said she had seen the video and it was clearly taken without my consent. She said the company had a policy against recording coworkers outside of work. I felt a little relief. Then she said, "But he's claiming you're faking your disability to get special treatment. He's filed a complaint with HR saying that you're abusing the placard system." I said, "I have a legal disability. It's documented. It's not abuse." She said, "I know, but we have to investigate both sides. That's policy." I stayed up that night thinking about what Casey had said to me weeks earlier. "You're not really disabled. You just can't handle a little pain." That's what he said when he saw me using my cane for the first time. I didn't report it then because I thought it was just a rude comment. But now I know it was the start. He had already decided I was faking. He had already decided he was going to prove it, and he almost succeeded. 3 days later, I got an email from my lawyer. She said Casey had hired a lawyer too. She said he was threatening to sue the company for discrimination if they fired him. She said he was claiming that I had used my disability to get an unfair advantage at work. I laughed out loud. An advantage? I have chronic pain every single day. I wake up stiff and sore. I can't stand in line for more than 10 minutes without needing to sit. I take medication that makes me tired. And this guy thought I was getting an advantage because I could park 10 feet closer to the door. I wasn't cheating the system. I was just trying to survive without collapsing in the parking lot. The police called me again last Tuesday. They said they found a second video. It was recorded 2 days after the first one. In this video, Casey had followed me to a grocery store. He filmed me pushing a cart. He filmed me bending down to get a bag of potatoes. He filmed me walking from the car to the entrance. The video was timestamped. It was 8 p.m. I remember that night. I was having a good day. My pain was at a 4 maybe. I didn't use my cane. I didn't limp. I felt almost normal. And he used that as proof that I was lying. The police officer said, "He sent this to the HR department at your job too." He included a note saying, "See, she can walk fine when she wants to." I asked, "Is that illegal?" The officer said, "It's not a crime to film someone in public, but he's using it to interfere with your job. That could be considered harassment, but it's hard to prove intent." I said, "He's stalking me. He's following me. He's recording me." What more do you need? The officer said. A pattern, a threat, something physical. I hung up. I called my lawyer again. She said we were going to file a civil suit for harassment and invasion of privacy. She said it might take months. She said Casey would probably get fired anyway, but we had to be prepared for a fight. I told her I was already exhausted. She said, I know, but you can't let him win. You're the victim here, not him. I keep telling myself that. But some days I wonder if I should have just stayed quiet. If I should have just let him think I was lazy, or let him think I was weak, or let him think I was lying. Maybe if I had just smiled and said nothing, he wouldn't have followed me. But I couldn't. I had a placard. I had a cane. I had a right to exist without being filmed. My sister says I should move. She says Texas is a tough state for people like me. You're disabled. You're black. And you're standing up to a white guy who's determined to take you down. The system isn't built for you to win. I know she's right, but I don't have the money to move. And I don't want to run. I didn't do anything wrong. So I stay. I keep my cane in my car. I check my mirrors before I get out. I carry pepper spray now. I don't go out after dark unless I have to, and I wait for the lawyer to call. I wait for HR to make a decision. I wait for Casey to make another move, because he will. People like him don't stop until they're stopped, and I'm not going to let him ruin my life anymore. I used to think being polite would protect me. I used to think that if I was nice enough, everyone would be nice back. But I learned that lesson twice now, once with a drug addict who used my razor and once with a coworker who used my face as evidence in his own twisted trial. Neither of them cared about my comfort. Neither of them cared about my boundaries. They just took what they wanted and called me difficult when I pushed back. But I'm done being difficult in silence. I'm done carrying my shampoo back and forth. I'm done hiding in my sister's house. I'm done letting people film me without my permission. I have a lawyer. I have a case number. I have a stack of medical records that prove I'm not faking. I have a stack of emails from HR proving I filed my disability paperwork before Casey even started working there. I have a stack of video timestamps showing he followed me for weeks. And I have a stack of police reports that say the same thing. This is harassment, but we can't do anything about it. The update came 2 weeks later. Amy called me on a Thursday afternoon. She sounded tired. She said the investigation was over. Casey had been terminated effective immediately. I felt a rush of relief. Then she said, but he's already filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against the company. He's claiming racial discrimination and retaliation. He's saying you lied about your disability to get him fired. I asked, did he show them the videos? She said yes. She said his lawyer argued that the videos proved I was functional and therefore I didn't need accommodations. She said the company's legal team had my doctor's note and my placard registration and my signed accommodation request from 6 months ago. She said it didn't matter. The lawsuit was going to drag on for months, maybe years, and Casey was still out there. That night I checked my mailbox. There was a letter from him, no return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was a single page. It said, you think you won, I know where you live. I know where your sister lives, I know where you park, I have more videos, I have more proof, you can't hide from me. I called the police again, they took the letter, they said they would look into it. I asked for a protective order, they said I needed to prove he posed an imminent threat. I said, he's following me, he's filming me, he sent me a threatening letter. They said, it's not a direct threat, he didn't say he would hurt you, he just said he knows where you live. I hung up. My sister begged me to move, she said she'd help with the deposit, she said I could stay with her until I found a place. I said no. I said I wasn't going to let him chase me out of my home. But that was 2 weeks ago. Last night I saw his car parked across the street from my apartment. I didn't call the police. I just sat in the dark and watched him sit in his car for 45 minutes. Then he drove away. I'm not sleeping well. I checked the locks 3 times before bed. I keep my cane by the door now, not for my pain, but as a weapon if I need it. I can't believe this is my life. I have a chronic condition that I never asked for. I work 2 jobs just to stay afloat. And some guy who wanted a promotion decided to turn me into his enemy. But I'm still here, I'm still standing, I'm still filing reports, I'm still going to work, I'm still doing my job better than he ever did. And one day maybe this will be over. One day I'll be able to park my car without checking the rearview mirror. One day I'll be able to walk into a store without looking over my shoulder. But that day isn't today. Today I'm just trying to survive. And I'm finally learning that being polite doesn't protect you. Being nice doesn't make people nice back. Sometimes you have to be loud, sometimes you have to be difficult, sometimes you have to record your own evidence and get a lawyer and fight back even when you're exhausted. Because if you don't, they'll keep taking from you, they'll keep filming you, they'll keep using your name, they'll keep using your razor, they'll keep using your face, and you'll be left with nothing but the memory of being quiet. I'm done being quiet. I'm done being the nice girl who doesn't want to start drama. I'm done carrying my shampoo back and forth. I'm done hiding from cameras. I'm done pretending the system works when it clearly doesn't.